Welcome in. Belly up, have a seat, grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome on into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. It is Wednesday, November 19th, and this is episode 196, and we go back in time for the Week 11 Rewind. In this show, we will close the books on Week 11 and transition into Week 12. We will start off with some player news, recap Week number 11 in the Wingman Fantasy Football League. We'll check in on those updated standings, take a gander at our Goose-o-meter. Strap in, boys and girls, it's time for a Mike Rant, and we'll take a glance at some waiver wire targets. And we'll let you know who took the high score and who's atop the current standings of the Wingman Jam. And we will preview the Thursday night game where the Buffalo Bills stampede into Houston to take on those Houston Texans. But before we do any of that, I'd like to make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingmen assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, the theme for week number 11 in the Wingman Fantasy Football League was that almost every matchup had the team with the lesser record, win this week's contest, as we had many upsets in terms of where they were in the standings going in to week 11. Now let's check in on some player news. Starting off, Calvin Ridley, Tennessee Titans wide receiver, was officially placed on IR with a broken fibula, ending his 2025 campaign. In Atlanta, Michael Penix Jr. was officially placed on the IR with an aggravated knee injury. He will miss at least the next 4 games, and Kirk Cousins will now be the starting quarterback for the foreseeable future. Staying in Atlanta here, we have Drake London, who suffered a knee sprain. He's considered week to week. However, at this point, he is not expected to play in Week 12. Jamar Chase will miss Week 12, not with an injury, but with a suspension, as he was suspended 1 game for an altercation which involved spitting in the face of Pittsburgh defensive back Jalen Ramsey. Kicker for San Francisco, Eddie Pinheiro, suffered a hamstring injury and is likely to miss Week 12 as the 49ers are fielding tryouts for the short-term replacement. So keep an eye on that. We might have a new kicker in San Francisco that's not yet on the team at this point. Now for our Houston Texans, CJ Stroud is still not cleared from the concussion protocol and has been ruled out for Week 12, although there is optimism that he may be able to get back for Week 13. However, with him out Week 12, Davis Mills will get his 3rd consecutive start for the Texans. Staying in Houston, Kaimi Fairbairn is expected to be available for the Texans this week on the Thursday night game against the Bills. Now, we had a lot of players leave the games early in Week 11, and some of these guys are kind of iffy with their injuries, so let's check in on those players. Starting off with our biggest name here, Josh Jacobs left Week 11 early with a knee injury. Fortunately, it was it's been considered to be a contusion, so nothing structural. At this point, he has not been ruled out for this week. However, he will not practice till later in the week, Friday at the earliest. So I expect him to miss at least 1 game, but there's even a chance he might miss no time at all. If you recall, Aronde Gadsden had a similar scare 2 weeks ago where he went out with a knee injury. It was also deemed a knee contusion, and he was back on the field the very next game. Aaron Rodgers suffered a fractured wrist, but will not require surgery, and that's good news. That means there's no minimum time that he will be required to miss to heal up. However, at this point, his Week 12 availability is unclear. I personally don't expect him to play this week. They're going to try and put some sort of soft cast on there or something, but I'm assuming they're going to give him 1 week off here, making way for Mason Rudolph to likely make the start for the Steelers in Week 12. Staying in Pittsburgh here, Jaylen Warren left Week 11 game early with an ankle injury. However, there's optimism that he will not miss any time at all and could be available for Week number 12. Bashal Tutin left Week 11 early with an ankle injury. There have been no updates on his status going forward. Keep in mind that game was a blowout, especially by the end there. So just because someone didn't come back into the game doesn't necessarily mean that the injury is serious. But again, we'll get more updates later in the week. Staying in that same game, I'm going to call out some news reports that have been false. Kamani Vidal, he did get banged up early on one of the first couple drives there with a thigh injury. There's been a news report saying that he did not return to the game. I watched the game. He did return to the game. He only got a couple of carries because they were down by so much. He did miss a chunk of time. I don't know. I would say about 8 minutes of game time. I'm kind of guessing a little bit, but a good chunk, a few drives. A handful of drives. But he did return to the game. He didn't play in the fourth quarter because they sat all their starters in the fourth quarter because they're getting killed. So if you hear reports here that Kamani Vidal was knocked out of the game with an injury, that is not true. He was injured, did come back, and then sat out the fourth quarter due to the blowout. They are on bye, however, this week, so you're not going to get any updates on the news there. The biggest news we're looking at in terms of the Chargers' backfield is Amari Hampton, who has a chance to be activated from the IR coming out of the team's Week 12 bye. However, we don't know anything about that until after Week 12 concludes. Amari DiMercato left Week 11 with an ankle injury, and it's already been reported that he is likely to miss Week 12. If you weren't aware there, Michael Carter got about, I looked at the thing, I don't have memorized, about 40% of the snaps, give or take. I think he was in for 39 of 75 plays, something like that. So he is splitting time with Bam Knight, about a 55, 45, 60, 40 split. And without DiMercato there, that should hold. And now to the Browns quarterback situation here. Dylan Gabriel left in the second half of Week 11 with a concussion. The head coach Stefanski has declared that if Gabriel can clear the concussion protocol, he will remain the starter. However, with practices not getting into full swing till Wednesday and Thursday here, we're not going to know the chance of Gabriel getting back on the field. There's a pretty strong chance Shedeur Sanders will make his first start for the Browns in Week 12. All right, guys, it is now time to go back in time as we do the Week 11 Rewind.
Let's go back. Week 11 Rewind.
All right, guys, before we can look forward, let's look back. Let's take a look at how the matchups played out in the Wingman Fantasy Football League. Our first game we're going to go over here is Jimerson's Red Sox Nation coming into Week 11 at 3-7 up against Michael's Amazing Spidey, who came in at 5-5. And this one was a bloodbath. Red Sox Nation took this one down 113.98 to 71.19. A huge win for Red Sox Nation as he already has 7 losses. The best he can get to is 500. So he needed this win to keep his slim playoff chances alive here. And he did just that by getting the highest score of the week. At just under 14 points, he had just under 114 points. He had a huge day, mostly brought on by his star quarterback, Josh Allen, who had over 46 points. On to our next game here. We have Paul's Cubert Rage, who came in at 5-5 up against the top of the standings player here, Brian's Under 40, who came in at 7-3, and this one wasn't even close. Paul's Cubert Rage took this one down 101.19 to 60.6 for an over 40-point victory for Cubert's Rage, just squishing the top of our standings even tighter. Ben's Go Gators came in at 5-5 up against Ken's The Fantastics, also at 5-5. This was one of our lower scoring matchups this week, and Go Gators took this one down to 81.96 to 63.65. A huge swing game for either of these teams, as now Ben's Go Gators has improved to 6-5, while Ken's The Fantastics falls to 5-6. Our next game here is Bernie's Team B.
I'm Cuban B.
Yes, Cuban B.
Who came in at 5-5 up against Reggie's Lions, who came in at 2-8, but fresh off the biggest upset of the year, beating the previous number 1 seed last week. However, he could not string a winning streak together here, despite starting the week off great with a 27-point game by Travion Henderson. However, the overall team game by Team B took this one down, even without his best player, as Jonathan Taylor was on bye in Week 11. Bernie's Team B took this one down 97.65 to 80.55, improving Bernie's Team B's records to 6-5, while Reggie's Lions falls to 2-9. This is now 2 wins in a row for Bernie's Team B, and right on time. All right, on to our next matchups, our more featured matchups where we break down the scores a little more in depth here. We're starting off here with Alex's They Took Our Jobs up against Katie's King George Scadaboo. This had the highest combined score this week at just about 203 points combined here. But Alex's They Took Our Job took this one down 111.02 to 92.09. And his entire team contributed to this one quite a bit here. This is now 2 wins in a row for They Took Our Jobs. Unfortunately, 2 losses in a row for Katie's King George Scadaboo. And with a score of 92.09 points, King George was the highest scoring loser.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
All right, let's see what players helped Alex's They Took Our Jobs take this victory down. As for the second straight week, his team is rounding into form right on time. Baker Mayfield at 20.82 points.
He's heating up.
Jahmyr Gibbs, off his monster game last week, contributed with a very strong game again at 17.1 points.
He's heating up.
And Kyren Williams. Release the Kyren.
You got knocked the fuck out, man.
Wrong button. Release the Kyren.
Release the Kraken.
At 16.1 points, and this is his third straight game as a top performer. Kyren Williams is on fire.
He's on fire.
Stephon Diggs is becoming very steady at 15 points.
He's heating up.
And even his kicker chipped in with 14.8 points. The horror villain himself, Jason Michael Myers, had 14.8 points for his second consecutive game as a top performer.
He's heating up.
He even put a streaming wide receiver in who came through, Trey Tucker at 12.7 points, scoring the only offensive touchdown for the Las Vegas Raiders.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
For the second straight week, Alex's They Took Our Jobs played the most perfect, his most optimal lineup, as there were no duds in his starting lineup and no one on his bench who outscored any of his starting players. And he also made it through the week without any major injuries. Now to Katie's King George, did have a strong day here at over 92 points in what was a dumpster fire of a week in terms of NFL scores here. Her top score this week was Bijan Robinson, the great Bijan.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
Got 28.3 points, most of those in the first half, in a loss to Carolina. She also had Travis Kelce, who's been very solid this season at 19.6 points. This is now 5 out of the last 6 games where Travis Kelce has scored at least double-digit points. And her kicker, Will Lutz, was the highest scoring kicker of the week at 19 points. But this is where she lost it. She had some huge, major duds on her team, and they were both members of the LA Chargers. Justin Herbert had only 5.34 points, and Quentin Johnson had 0.0 points. She'd have one player on her bench who had a strong day, but not any better than the starter that she did have, as her backup kicker also had a good day at 12 points. Jake Elliott had 12 points in Week 11. She, too, made it through the week without any major injuries. On to our next game. Nick's Waddle Away coming in at 5-5 up against Corey's Maydaddy 2s, who came in at 6-4. And once again, guys, the team with a lesser record coming into this one took this one down as Waddle Away. Actually, before I give you the score, this one came down to Monday night with Nick's Waddle Away down by 30 points. Corey Maydaddy's 2 team was done scoring. He had 2 players on Monday night. He had his his Dallas Cowboys receivers, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens coming in, needing to score over 31 points to take this one down in a comeback. And they did just that, getting 40 points to have this one be a final score of 99.07 for Waddle Away, defeating Maydaddy 2s, who had 90 points even. This was our closest game of the week at just over a 9-point differential. And don't look now, but Nick's Waddle Away, who was 3-5 just 3 weeks ago, is now 6-5 and on a 3-game winning streak. And he had some players help him get to this score, and some of these guys are going to be surprising names here. Not the first one here. George Pickens at 24.9 points. And I want to say here, guys, in case you are not aware, George Pickens has had 10 points or more in all but one game this season. He has become this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown as one of the most consistent players. He also had Travis Etienne, Senior Muibian at 19.3 points. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Travis Etienne, with his third consecutive game on the top performer list, he is on fire.
He's on fire!
He also had Tyron Tracy. Had 15.9 points, and CeeDee Lamb also had a strong day at 15.1 points. He got the win despite his quarterback letting him down, as Lamar Jackson was a dud this week for Waddle away at 8.72 points. There was no one on the bench who could have helped Waddle away here, and he had no injuries as well. Now for Corey Maydaddy twos. He had some strong players, but he also had some strong players on his bench. Let's break down his score a little bit here. He had Brock Purdy at 20 points, and I had to go back, guys, but even though it's been spaced out, Brock Purdy is actually on fire.
He's on fire!
He's had 20 or more points in all three of his starts in week 1, 3, and 11 here. So he's been good when he plays. Also, his newly acquired Derrick Henry came in with 19.2 points. And Jamison Williams, after having 0 points just 4 weeks back, is now on a 3-game hot streak here at 17.7 points.
He's on fire!
And the most consistent wide receiver in all of the land, Jackson Smith-Njigba, keeps chugging along as he had 16.1 points this season. Actually, he's more like the Amon-Ra St. Brown, as he's had 11 points or more in every single game this year. He's been the model of consistency. All right, this is where he lost the game here with one of his duds. Jamar Chase, his overall number 1 drafted player here, at only 4.5 points. And also he had some big scores on his bench despite Brock Purdy being on fire. If he would have played his other quarterback, he would have won this week. Bryce Young had 31.93 points on the bench. And Bernie and I talked about it with the DK Metcalf being part of the trade to get Derrick Henry. I thought it might be a sabotage, and it might be showing to be true here. If he did not have DK Metcalf, he might have put this player in his starting lineup. Michael Wilson had 26 points on the bench. Maydaddy 2s did not have any major injuries. However, Jamar Chase will be out this next coming week as he is now dealing with a suspension.
Uh-oh!
On to our last featured game of the week. This one was our upset of the week, as Andrew's Crazy Fish at 4-6 up against Jeff's Always Right, tied for first place at 7-4. And my, oh my, we had the upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
Andrew's Crazy Fish took this one down 106.62 to 50.39. Not only did we have an upset, guys, but this was our biggest blowout of the week.
You got knocked the fuck out, man.
At a differential of over 56 points, there was a no doubt who took this one down. For Andrew's Crazy Fish, who started the year out at 0-5, he is now won 5 of his last 6, improves to 5-6, while Jeff's Always Right has now lost 2 games in a row. It's now fallen to 7-4. And unfortunately for Jeff's Always Right, he was the lowest score of the week. All right, let's see what players helped Crazy Fish take this one down. Starting off with his quarterback, Dak Prescott, at 26.72 points. And Trey McBride of Frankenstein.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Had 22.5 points, and McBride has been chugging along, one of the more consistent, high-producing players in the league. He also had Eddie Pinero, we mentioned who's hurt now, but he had 16.2 points despite missing 2 extra points last game. And Drake London had 15.4 points.
He's on fire!
He also had the Jacksonville defense, his streaming defense, come through with 12.5 points.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
And this is the second straight week the Jacksonville defense had double-digit points.
He's heating up!
He did have a couple duds in his starting lineup, did Crazy Fish, at Woody Marks at 5.6 points. And Ricky Pearsall finally got back on the field, but you barely noticed it in terms of production at only 0.5 points. He had some major players on his bench who had huge days, including Kenneth Gainwell at 26 points even, and Tyler Loop for the second straight week, breaking 11 points at 11.3 points.
He's heating up!
Crazy Fish had a couple injuries this week. Drake London with a knee injury is considered week to week. Probably going to miss at least 1 to 2 games, as is Eddie Pinero with a hamstring injury, also expected to miss a couple weeks here as well.
Oh, no.
Now for Always Right, like again, the lowest score of the week at barely breaking 50. It's safe to say he had no top performers this list, but he had plenty of duds. He had Tony Pollard at 4.1 points, Josh Jacobs at 4 point even, Kyle Pitts at 2.4, and Khalil Shakir could only get 0.5 points. It seemed like Always Right was always wrong this week, as he had many players on his bench who also had better scores than his starters, as Jacoby Brissett keeps chugging along at 26.08 points. He also had the Cleveland defense on the bench get a whopping 14 points, and Kareem Hunt chipped in with 12.7 points.
He's on fire!
All on the bench. His injury this week was Josh Jacobs. We're not sure if he's going to miss any time. He's considered day-to-day with that knee contusion. Honestly, I think it's probably 60-40 he misses this week, but there's a chance he doesn't miss any time at all. All right, guys, now that we've gone through the games here, let's take a look at our updated standings, and boy, do we have some movement. Our top 2 players are still the same in terms of their seedings, but they both did lose, as Under 40 and Always Right both fell to 7 and 4. And Bernie's Team B on a 2-game winning streak is rising, went from 5th place to 3rd place. Cubert's Rage also jumped up 2 spots from 6 to 4, while Go Gators also moved up 2 spots from 7 to 5. May Daddy 2's had a big fall this week from 3 last week, is now 6th this week, and King George is holding on to our last playoff spot, falling from 4 to 7. But she's not, but there's a tie, 2 people behind her that are tied. So we have, what do we have? 2, 4, 7-way tie for 3rd place, going from 3rd to 9th, as they took our jobs. Also at 6 and 5 is just outside of the playoff line, and Waddle Away moved up 2 spots from 11 to 9 at 6 and 5 as well. Crazy Fish had a big jump, as he now has 5 wins, as he went from 12 to 10. The Fantastics fell 2 spots from 9 to 11. Amazing Spidey fell 2 spots from 10 to 12 here. Red Sox Nation still in 13th, while Lionized is holding up the rear at 2 and 9. All right, guys, it's time to take a look at our updated Goose-O-meter.
I'm just goosing along.
All right, we did add 1 more Goose this week. So we are at a total of 15 Gooses. King George Scadaboo had Quentin Johnson for the 2nd time in 4 weeks become a Goose, and she is now tied for the top of the Goose-O-meter with Corey May Daddy 2's, who has 3 Gooses as well. So both King George and May Daddy 2's has 3 Gooses in their ledger here. All right, guys, it is now time to strap in for a Mike Rant.
Baby Rant. Karen Rant.
I don't care whose fault it is. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think.
Mike Rant.
All right, guys, the rant this week has been inspired by that awful game in Madrid this week with the Washington Commanders and the Miami Dolphins. This one's about analytics. All right, don't get me wrong here. I have no problem with analytics as a overall idea, but it's all about what you do with it, what numbers go in, what numbers you take out. Analytics on their own is not a fail-safe here. For example, if you look at a stat that says teams go for it on 4th down and less than 2 get it 50% of the time, we should go for it here because we're going to get it 50% of the time. That includes everybody. So that includes the Eagles, who get it 90% of the time, and the Dolphins, who get it 10% of the time. You have to have analytics for your own team here. If you've got a left-handed batter who can't hit against righties, you don't put him in against a righty because he's left-handed. You have to keep track of what your guys are doing. Both these teams, the Commanders and the Miami Dolphins, went for it on 4th down and goal over and over again in a game that was only had 26 points total. Take the field goal, guys. You're not good. You're not going to get it. Your percentage of getting it is way lower than whatever the card says because you are not part of that card. You are not part of the elite that bring up the bell curve here, guys. You are the dredges of the bottom. You are unsuccessful more times than not. Don't put yourselves in situations. Don't take away points that you've already earned. Kick the field goal. You Dolphins could have won that game by 9 points. They were lucky. The Commanders missed the field goal at the buzzer that they would have lost that game. Take the freaking points. If you're not good, don't use the analytics for the league. Use the analytics for your team and realize it's like saying, I'm 6 feet tall. We'll just go with that for now. If they say 20% of people 6 feet tall can dunk a basketball. Well, shoot. I'm going to try 5 times. I bet I'm going to dunk it once. No, I'm not. I'm not one of those people who are going to do it. Mac McClung's going to do it 100% of the time. I'm going to do it 0% of the time. Don't go for the dunk. You're going to hurt yourself, Mike. Don't go for it on 4th down and field goal range if you're the Dolphins or the Commanders. All right. Thanks for indulging me on that rant, guys. Thank you. All right. Waiver wire. It's time. It might have run in your league, but we're going to give you some ideas here for even some late free agent pickups, or if you have those Wednesday, later in the Wednesday waiver wire time they don't go through, later until Wednesday. Here are some waiver wire targets. Starting off with our quarterback. If you haven't picked him up yet, Jacoby Brissett, we've mentioned it here, is scored 24 or more points in every game since he's been the starter. They're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. He should be the top quarterback out there for you guys to pick up. If he's not available, I got Davis Mills in a bit of a tougher matchup here, but he's been very successful as the team's been playing from behind, and he hyper targets his best players. They're playing Buffalo on Thursday night. I don't like playing guys on Thursday in streaming situations here, but if you're really desperate and you've got guys that are out on bye or injuries here, Davis Mills will get the start at least. He will be on the field in a game where they're going to have to score points to have a chance to win. Mason Rudolph for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If the Aaron Rodgers cannot go, I expect him to miss at least 1 to 2 games here. They're playing the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears are a little bit of an up and down, hit or miss, but they've been known at times to give up huge games here as well. Jameis Winston, we're not sure about the status of Jackson Dart as of yet. I haven't seen any updated news, so at the moment, I'm going to assume Winston is going to start. Again, I wouldn't put a lot of money here on this one because we're not sure if he's actually going to play. But they're playing the Detroit Lions, a tough defense, I do admit, but again, a team that's going to have to score to keep up. And Kirk Cousins will be the starter for the rest of the fantasy season here, at least heading into the fantasy playoffs for sure. Up against New Orleans, that shouldn't be a daunting task for him, although there's no guarantee he'll be able to perform against anybody here. But Kirk Cousins is now a starting quarterback. Now for our running backs. These guys are all really sketchy plays here. We've got Emmanuel Wilson, seems to be the obvious person on top here, as Josh Jacobs did get banged up, but that injury was great news for Jacobs in that it wasn't any kind of structural damage. There is a chance that Josh Jacobs doesn't miss any time, and it's going to take a ton of money to pick up Emmanuel Wilson, and it might be one of those things you're like, yes, I got him for whatever price you're putting in, and then 3 days later you realize he's not playing, or not going to start anyway, or that Josh Jacobs is in, and you're like, man, I wasted all of that money. So this one's a tread lightly type of pickup here. He's definitely worth picking up. The price tag is really hard to say because we don't know if he's going to play. But I would say do not pick him up playing as a pickup as a start for more than this week. If you need a starter this week and you need a win, if you're going to be eliminated with a loss, that'd be the time to put as much as you think is required to pick him up. Otherwise, it's like you kind of want him, but I could see you being a regretful acquisition by a couple days news going by. Same thing with Kenneth Gainwell. Every time he starts, he has huge games, and he's always playable as a split backfield guy. But Jaylen Warren, too, his injury was deemed not serious by the end of it here. We're not sure if he's going to miss any time or not. So Kenneth Gainwell up against the Chicago Bears here is a good matchup, but there's no guarantee he's going to get the boatload of the work once again. Very similar to Emmanuel Wilson. You might be paying for what you think is a starter, and by Sunday's kickoff, you have a backup running back for a huge acquisition price. Devin Singletary is not the starter. There was no injury for Tyron Tracy, but both these guys had huge games last week. We mentioned Tyron Tracy with 15 some odd points without getting in the end zone, and Devin Singletary had 18 points, scoring twice. So Tyron Tracy was definitely the better runner in terms of yards, but Singletary is part of this backfield and always has a chance to score. And here's my stash. I've mentioned for the last couple weeks here, Keaton Mitchell for the Baltimore Ravens. Justice Hill was out last week. Have not seen an update whether that was how much longer he may miss. But again, we want backup running backs on good teams. Just hold on to him for as long as you can. Like I said, I had Emmanuel Wilson on my team for 3 weeks. Was waiting for this particular injury if it were to come. Couldn't hold on to him anymore. Had to drop him, and now he's out there for someone else to acquire. In the same lens here, Tank Bigsby backing up Saquon Barkley is another stash candidate. Hold on to him for as long as you can until you need that spot, because that will be a lottery ticket if it ever comes through. Our wide receivers we're looking at here, or receivers in general, Michael Wilson, he might have stayed out there last week. He might not have been picked up last week. They're playing against Jacksonville. We're not sure if Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to play or not. There's a little bit of data with players missing time with an appendectomy, and it's usually between that 10 to 20 day window here. So he may be back. He was on the sideline last game. I mentioned that in our 2-point conversation. He was there, so he was obviously well enough to be on the sideline with his teammates. So I'm just not sure. But Zay Jones is out for the season. So Michael Wilson, at worst, will be a number 2 receiver if you don't count Trey McBride, which you have to, of course. The number 3 option in the passing game here. But if Marvin Harrison's out, once again, he is the lone wide receiver of note for the Arizona Cardinals. Brenton Strange was really close to playing last week, almost being activated from the IR here. He has been practicing. They're playing against Arizona, and Arizona's been giving up tons of points lately with their defense. So Brenton Strange is a sneaky play here. We'll find out more about Brian Thomas if he's able to play. There's been no updates. He has missed the last 2 games. So if Brian Thomas is out, Brenton Strange becomes even more compelling of a pickup. And Mac Hollins sneakily has been very solid for the New England Patriots. They're playing against Cincinnati this week, guys, in a game that should be very high scoring. Mac Hollins has been getting like 50 or 60 yards at least in like the last 5 games. So he's just been very steady as a emergency flex play here. Not a lot of upside here, but if you just need someone to put in your lineup, he's kind of like what Jacoby Myers was for the Raiders. Mac Hollins could be that for the Patriots. Again, with that one, we're going to want to double check to make sure Kayshon Boutte has or has not returned to the lineup. Now for our kickers this week that catch my attention, Daniel Carlson up against Cleveland. A tough defense for sure, but this game will be indoors in Las Vegas. There should be a chance for several field goals here, as Cleveland will not run away with it. And we even saw in this last game, as the Dallas Cowboys were starting to get the score pull away there, they still kicked field goals until it became late in the fourth quarter. So they're not afraid to kick the field goal there in a game that's within a 2-score game. Blake Grupe for New Orleans up against Atlanta. This game, too, indoors. A lot of times this is just based on who's playing where, inside or outside, as the weather is going to start to get more determining factor as we get into the later parts of the fall and early winter here, guys. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm looking for guys who are playing indoors. Harrison Melvis is the kicker now for the LA Rams. They're playing against Tampa Bay, which should be a high-scoring game, and that one, too, if I recall, is an indoor game in Los Angeles. Now for a couple defenses who catch my attention, the Las Vegas Raiders up against the Cleveland Browns. The Raiders are not a great defense, but you always have Max Crosby, and we've got potentially, well, even if it's Dylan Gabriel, but even more so, potentially Shedeur Sanders getting the start. We see him get sacked quite a bit and throw the ball away. There's a chance for some turnovers here, maybe even a safety. It's a lot of times his sacks, he runs backwards until there's nowhere else to run. Las Vegas is a very sneaky streaming defense for this week. And the New Orleans Saints up against Atlanta. It's all how much confidence you have in Kirk Cousins. If he's played like he's been playing for the last year and a half or so, this should be a decent streaming defense as the Saints go against a weaker quarterback. Although if you have faith in Cousins, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, then you'll be less likely to make that decision to pick up New Orleans. All right, guys, it is now time to take a look back at how Weeks 11 Wingman Jam went. Reminder here, guys, this was the first week of phase number 4. As we have a 3-week run to determine who will earn that second seat of the Showcase Showdown in Week 14. Andrew F. has earned the first seat, so the winner of Phase 4 will play against Andrew on a one-on-one battle for some Wingman Fantasy Football merch. And if Andrew can win Phase 4, he will lock it up. He will earn himself the automatic swag and take on whoever's in second here for a chance for an additional prize, a gift card. If he can do the double sweep here by taking both and then beating Bernie or I there. So there's an extra incentive to play this one out in Phase 4. 1, to lock up your swag, and 2, to get a bonus prize if you can win the heads-up matchup against the highest scoring host, if that becomes the case. There's still time to get in, guys. We have 2 more weeks of phase number 4. So here we go. Let's look at our last week's Wingman Jam results and standings.
Wingman Fantasy Football.
Wingman Jam with Bernie the Bounty Hunter and Amazing Spidey. Boom shakalaka. Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. All right, I went with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Warren, while Bernie went with the Dak Stack, Prescott, and CeeDee Lamb. And a big output here for the Dallas Cowboys, 41.82 to the Steelers, 17.14.
That game flew harder than your grandfather standing over his birthday cake on his 100th birthday. Bernie takes this one. Team B wins.
All right, Bernie took this one in the heads-up battle, but we had other players out there joining us, as once again Andrew joined us. He went with the Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa and Devon Achane. Achane held up his part of the bargain, but Tua was a dud at 25.84 points. Let's take a look at the standings through week 1 of phase number 4. Bernie had the highest score this week. He had 4 points through week 1. You get 1 point for showing up and 3 bonus points for first place, 2 bonus points for second, and 1 bonus point for third. Andrew took the second place with a low score of 25, but it was better than the 17 points that Amazing Spidey that I got with the Steelers. So I have 2 points this week, and Ken T has his 1 rollover point from phase 1. You are still in this if you want to join back in, Ken. All right. It's time to turn the page now. Turn the page, guys. Let's get into week 12 now. Let's do our Thursday night preview. We are looking at this Thursday, the Buffalo Bills heading down to Houston Texans. Again, an 8:15 p.m. Eastern start time here. The over-under is a very middle low here at 43.5. Buffalo is favored at -6. I've been going back and forth here. I actually put Houston to win and cover at first, as I really do like home teams on Thursday night games the later we go into the season. But it's really hard to pick Buffalo not to beat Houston here, especially because the spread wasn't so big. It's 6 points. So the way I'm gonna pick this one right now, my first instinct was Houston, but then my brain said you can't do that. So I'm gonna go with Buffalo to cover and win. However, I think it's gonna be a low scoring game, as that Houston defense really is very good. This game's gonna be around that a 17-10 score, give or take, maybe 20-13 at best. So we're gonna go with Buffalo. It just seems a safer play here, but got a sneaky suspicion the home team. Like I said, I like home teams on Thursday night. Now for some options here. We're going with the Buffalo side of the ball here. Pretty easy. Josh Allen should be in your lineup, as well as James Cook. Now the question is, what receivers are even going to dress for the Buffalo Bills? And honestly, does it even matter? All right, let's go through some options here. We've got Keon Coleman. Not even sure if he's on the team anymore. He was a healthy scratch last week for not following some team rules here. So you can't play him right now. Khalil Shakir, I think, is the only guy of name that you could maybe play, but do you want a middling receiver in your starting lineup for 5 days from a Thursday night game? I don't. I would not look to play any receivers, not even Gabe Davis. We also have Dawson Knox potentially if Dalton Kincaid misses again. It's the Josh Allen show and James Cook. These are the only 2 guys doing anything here. Of course, any one of these receivers or tight ends could get in the end zone here, but I don't want to bank on all these guys. So right now, Josh Allen, James Cook are in your lineup. Everyone else is out. Now for the Houston side of the ball here, we have Davis Mills, who's been pretty decent for them in the last couple of games. It depends on what you have in terms of desperation here, but only if you're desperate. When I played Davis Mills, I think he has a chance to be fine. But I don't want to count on it here, as he's gotten most of his points in fourth quarter comebacks or second half comebacks here. So I would put him at that behind rank 12 here. I'd put him at like a rank 14th, give or take. So you could play him. I would not look to play him. Woody Marks, he's got almost all the work in terms of the carries last week, but he really hasn't been that effective. Although he does have a decent game every once in a while. I'd put him as your last flex. You could play him again with a Thursday night game. I'm not looking to, but as a home team running back, that is always a plus in terms of the Thursday of variables here. You could put him in your lineup. I would not. I'd be looking for other options. So just keep that in mind here. So yeah, he's a RB3, I would say, or a flex 1 or 2, depending on how your rosters are configured. Nico Collins, he's earned the right to get in your lineup even on a Thursday night with Davis Mills. He's been over 19 points the last 3 weeks here, so he's been very good for Houston since the quarterback change due to the concussion here to CJ Stroud. Nico Collins is a lock in your lineup. Now for some of our flex options here. Who are we looking at here? We got Jaden Higgins, Nick Chubb, Dalton Schultz. Again, on a Thursday night, I don't want to take such chances. I'm not looking to play any of these guys. Jaden Higgins is starting to get a little more involved here, as is Dalton Schultz, but Nick Chubb is going the opposite direction, only getting 3 carries or so the last couple weeks. Nick Chubb is a definite avoid, and I honestly wouldn't play any of these guys. Maybe Schultz in a back-end tight end role if you're desperate. Once again, Josh Allen, automatic start. James Cook, automatic start. Nico Collins, automatic start. You can play Davis Mills, you can play Woody Marks. Everyone else I would avoid, except maybe Dalton Schultz as an emergency tight end. Again, I'd be looking for more options, other options. All right, guys, thank you for joining me for another episode of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League podcast. You can find our audio feeds on your favorite podcasting platforms. Just search Wingman the League. It will come to the top of your search. Also, if you want to see our show, our video show here, you can go to our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube or youtube.com/@wingmanfantasyfootball. If you find our YouTube channel, do me the favor, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Let us know which NFL games you want us to preview on our next show. Pick it at your Wingman Jam stack and leave any kind of comments, and we'll get them into our next mailbag segment. With that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty, and we will see you next time.